Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest transfer update. There's a race for Benjamin Sesko happening. Who's in pole position? Alexander Isak is still the subject of a summer saga, and might Jack Grealish end up on Merseyside this season? All these questions will be discussed and possibly answered on this episode. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, Mr. Joseph Lowery's here. Hello, Joe.
Yeah, Ryan, do we ever fully answer questions? I feel like we do discuss, we think, we maybe ponder aloud. Do we answer them? Rarely. So I would expect more discussion than pure hard answers today.
Yeah, we ruminate, Joe. I would actually suggest we change our name to TRS, the Total Rumination Show. That was
I'm in. Taylor's not here. I think as long as we have quorum amongst us, we're good to go.
Agreed. Graham Ruthven, we in? TRS?
I mean, I'm here with the hard answers. Benjamin Sesko, flop. Isak, 150 million 2 days before the end of the window. I've got the answers.
Oh, wow. You've really cliff notes this episode in advance, Graham. Thank you very much. That's good. Excellent stuff. Yes, obviously, there's a few transfer stories which are developing into sagas, but which is the sagariest of the sagas? We shall find out on this episode, possibly, or maybe we'll just discuss it or ruminate on it. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support Total Rumination Show, by the way. You could get bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server where all the cool kids are hanging out. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Please and a thank you. All right, let's say we get straight to it with the race for Benjamin Sesko, which makes it sound very dramatic, Graham. The last I'm seeing is an amount of around £74 million. Manchester United might be interested in outlaying, adding to the £130 million they've already spent on Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. I hate to be a tea lady at Carrington Training Ground right now because cuts are coming. But here we go, Graham. What do we think?
See, the thing is, Sesko's so fast that he can do it all. He can, one moment he can be serving the tea, the other moment he'll be scoring goals on the pitch. So they're just going to employ him to do everything all at once. And they're paying a pretty penny for him to do that. £75 million, or euros I should say, plus €5 million was where the bidding started earlier in the week, with Newcastle making that offer. That seemed to be an attempt to steal a march on Manchester United, who are also interested, as we know now. But over the next couple of days, the reporting was that Manchester United were using this time to gauge where Sesko truly wanted to go. And the answer, not for the first time this summer, seems to be Old Trafford, where they are making a habit of eating Newcastle's lunch served by Benjamin Sesko after he's poured the tea. Nice. And yesterday, David Ornstein reported Manchester United are closing in on a deal for Sesko just before we started recording, like literally minutes before we started recording. David Ornstein reported that an agreement in principle has been reached with Leipzig for that transfer. And first of all, €85 million, if that's what the deal kind of amounts to, or I think it might be €82 million. Either way, feels like a lot for a player who is still pure potential at this point. And I want to make clear that Sesko does have potential. There is a world where he grows into a tier 1 centre forward. He's got all the physical attributes. He is lightning quick, as a kind of reference. He's physically imposing. I think he's Joe, what did you say before we started recording? 6'5".
Yep.
Yeah, which is tall. So for someone to move as quickly as he does and be as tall as he is pretty formidable. He can shoot from anywhere. That is sometimes part of the problem with Benjamin Sesko. Yeah, but he's got an absolute cracker. He's got a cracker of a shot on him. You see him scoring goals from close range inside the box, but every so often he'll bang one in from distance as well. The problem for Sesko is, while he has all those qualities and attributes, things have yet to all come together at once. And his numbers aren't actually that impressive. He scored 13 Bundesliga goals last season. He was also ranked 29th and 30th in Europe for things like shots per 90 and XG per 90 as well. So this kind of reminds me a bit of, and this is not what Manchester United fans will want to hear, reminds me a bit of the Højlund deal, in that they are buying the player Sesko could become rather than the one he is now, which is fine to an extent, but also this Manchester United team needs a starting number 9 who delivers at least on some semi-regular basis. They don't really need another Rasmus Højlund. So I think Sesko has, to recap, he's got potential. He could end up being that player for Manchester United, but there's a big leap for him to go from where he is now to where Man United need him to be.
Yeah, and it seems like the jump that Manchester United have reportedly gone on from close to the beginning of the summer, where they were wanting to trigger Liam Delap's £30 million release clause, to dropping this much on Sesko, is there's a lot of distance between those two things. I'll put it that way. Because Graham, I think you've laid out your case for why you are a bit wary of this move, right? I think it's completely understandable. I don't even disagree with anything you said, except for maybe that he's all potential. He's not all potential. Like 13 goals last season in the Bundesliga, 2,400 minutes. I know that's not elite production, but as a 21-year-old, there's some juice in there. But he is a lot potential. That's the only thing I would minorly quibble with. I want to lay out the case. I'm doing a lot of making cases this week. I did this with Jeff on Tuesday. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Maybe I'll make it a thing. I want to lay out the case for why you do this and why Sesko's numbers from last year actually should be viewed a whole lot differently than maybe they are or would be viewed on the surface. So first of all, the potential side is obvious, and Graham, you already laid out the case for that. But he is however athletic you're thinking, he is more than that. Like he is in the very, very top tier globally of athletes in this game. I think about him being basically a Haaland, Mbappe, like, you know, that sort of tier of athlete. I don't know if he has Haaland's quick acceleration in that same way, but with his size, with his speed, his strength, he has all the physical tools. Like he is an insane athlete. Aerial ability, set pieces, I mean, that's massive, right? Can dribble 1v1. He does a lot of the technical stuff too, even if there is some refinement to do in his link-up play at times and his decision-making. Graham, you brought that out really well. But I want to borrow from Billy Carpenter here, who does a fantastic Arsenal blog, Substack, called Edu's Barbecue. It's really, really good. This is a line from a report that he did on Sesko about maybe him going to Arsenal, and he did a deep scouting report. Last year, we talked about the numbers already for Sesko. 13 goals, 2,400 Bundesliga minutes, 21 years old. Last year, Union Berlin, who scored 35 goals in the Bundesliga, took more shots than RB Leipzig. So did West Ham. So did Manchester United. RB Leipzig were not a good attacking team last year. They did not move the ball well into the final third. They have talent, like we know about Xavi Simons and the links to Chelsea, and we know about Openda, and we know about Sesko. They had talent up in the final third. They did not have reliable ball progression to generate shots and to create chances outside of Simons for their other attacking players. So Sesko created 13 goals out of a team that took fewer took fewer shots than Union Berlin, who are not a good attacking team. We know that. We've known that for quite some time now. That is telling to me. If you want to think about potential as well and the fact that the production hasn't fully been there, I know these are like the best of the best examples. Robert Lewandowski was a rotation player at Sesko's age. Like he was not anywhere near the Lewandowski we know him to be today. Julian Alvarez was still at River Plate over in Argentina. Maybe a more relevant example for this summer, Victor Gyökeres was in the second Bundesliga with St. Pauli. Like this is a position with a history of later bloomers. Not that 21 is a late bloomer. And Leipzig were bad enough last year. I know we think about them being as this Champions League level club. They were poor straight up last season in the attack. That Sesko pulled that much out of this team at his age, I think is a pretty impressive sign. Whether it's worth this much money, I don't know. But if you're making the case, I think there is a way to see this as, wow, there's not just one world that this goes well for Manchester United. There are many. Also, there's a lot of world where this is not going to end up pretty.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, over the last 10 years or in the sort of post-Sir Alex Ferguson era, when was the last time Manchester United actually developed a player? They've developed a couple of homegrown players. I would say it got to a point where Marcus Rashford had been developed into a kind of elite level attacking piece for that team. Obviously things have changed since then. But in terms of bringing someone in to then develop and have like a solid progression season on season for them to then be a tier 1 player, when was the last time Manchester United did that? I mean, Bruno Fernandes has been their tier 1 player for the last few years, but he was a plug and play. He came in and immediately was like a difference maker for them. They haven't done it in years and years. And so I know this is a new era for Manchester United with Ratcliffe and Ineos and Amorim putting his stamp on this team, but that is part of why I am wary about this transfer. I've just seen it so many times with Manchester United. There was a time when I thought of Rasmus Højlund, and I think Sesko's ceiling is higher than Højlund's ceiling ever was, but there was a time when he comes into Manchester United and I looked at his raw attributes and I thought, yeah, this guy could actually succeed at Old Trafford. And the way that they've just broken him down, where at the end of last season, it's barely worth having him on a football pitch. Like, Manchester United continually do this. And I will say, I think there might be less pressure on Sesko now that they've brought in proven attackers like Cunha and Mbeumo. I think Højlund might be a little bit jealous that Sesko's been dropped into that attack rather than the one he was dropped into 2 years ago, where it was Fernandes and nothing else. But and I do think it's a super interesting signing. I'm just not totally convinced it's like the slam dunk number 9 that a lot of Manchester United fans were wanting, where if they'd gone and got Victor Osimhen, then maybe that you think, okay, he's the plug-and-play centre-forward for this team. He's going to have to progress his game, Sesko, to be that player.
So, Joe, I appreciated the case you made there, and if I might cross-examine a little bit. If you were a Big Six club and you were in need of a striker at the start of this summer, and you could go for Sesko or Gyökeres, who would you take?
Oh, man. It might depend on which Big Six club I am, right? So I'm kind of waffling here and sitting on the hedge. If I'm a team that thinks I'm like ready to push for titles and my trophy window is now, although trophy windows work differently, right, in these top flight European leagues, because they're always open basically for the big teams because you have all the money. But if I think I am really close, Gyökeres is probably the one that I'm more tempted by. If I'm Manchester United, man, like does signing Victor Gyökeres really do what you want him to do for you? Like, yes, it helps you stabilize maybe, and he bulldozes teams, and you get the reunion with Amorim, and you expect production there because there's a lot of continuity there. But is that what I need? I don't know. And that's part of the reason why I find myself being attracted to this deal in some ways for Manchester United, while still conceding that everything Graham said is completely fair. You know, Manchester United are not a great club to develop at historically, in recent history. And I don't necessarily see that changing overnight. It's going to take time. There's a lot of other stuff that needs to happen. Forget all the, organizational rot. There's also just the fact that this soccer team is still not going to be very good relative to the best teams in England. Like, they're not going to be as functional in midfield. They're not going to have ideal conditions for any of their attackers at any age to thrive. At the same time, I think Sesko is so talented. I think his ceiling is so absurdly high, like higher than any 9 on the planet right now that is not Holland, right? I mean, like Kane and Lewandowski are still the old guard. But when you're looking to that next generation, I think Sesko is in that tier of, man, this is what he could be. For Manchester United, I don't blame them for going out there and making a move like that. I don't blame them for going out there identifying a player that they think can grow with them rather than somebody who's kind of already there, is closer to 30 than he is to 20, and going on at it from that perspective. But if I'm somebody else, like if I'm Arsenal, I don't blame them for going out there and adding a Gyökeres type to their team rather than a Sesko.
Graham, do we like what Man United are building this summer with Cunha, with him, and maybe even Carlos Baleba from Brighton coming in as well after this as well? It's in recent years it's been hard to be bullish and positive as a Man United fan. Do you feel like this could be the summer where it's actually got some foundation to it?
So that latter potential deal, as it is at this stage, for Carlos Baleba, is when I read that on Wednesday night, David Ornstein reporting, a few others reporting that, including Indy Kalia. Did anyone see that, David Ornstein?
Graham, can you explain that to me? Because I don't understand. I think I was on vacation when this happened, and I please make it make sense, and maybe give context for the listener if they don't know.
So the context with Indy Kalia is going back like 10 years. He was this Twitter account who would steal stories and make stuff up and became inexplicably huge on Twitter. But it was just, the story was, I don't know if this was true, that it was a guy working in KFC who basically built up this following on Twitter, right, and didn't have any sources and just tweeted nonsense out. Something has happened this summer, and people are speculating maybe it's been bought by a company or a person that does have contacts, or maybe he has just like crap posted his way into having contacts around soccer, because he's got scoops. And David Ornstein last night credited, or didn't credit, he basically said, you know how journalists, when they're maybe beaten to a scoop, they'll say someone first. Well, David Ornstein, the king of transfer scoops, did that with Indy Kalia last night in this Carlos Baleba story. So I don't know what's going on there. And frankly, I don't know what's going on with Manchester United potentially getting into the race for a €100 million plus midfielder when they've already spent as much as they have this summer. But if they are able to do that deal, that is a deal that I think maybe moves the needle for them in terms of judging their whole window. I do have questions about how much they spent on Matheus Cunha. As I've kind of outlined, I have questions about whether Sesko is going to be the right fit for this team. But as a whole, if you have a window where you add Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko to an attack that badly struggled last year, and you add Carlos Baleba to a midfield that is desperate for any kind of physicality and a two-way midfielder in there. I've watched a couple of Manchester United's games this summer, and they've looked decent, but that midfield is still a concern. You add Baleba to that, he makes a huge difference. But it seems like there's a long way to go, and they're going to have to find a lot of money to get him.
Yeah, Baleba is awesome. Like, I mean, I am joining the chorus on that front.
You're a Baleba.
Yeah, I am, very much so. I'm absolutely a Baleba in Baleba. He is so effective defensively, like that is the best part of his game, but he's not just a one-way player. He is a ball progressor on the dribble. I think he is I think he's able to do even more progressive passing than he did in Brighton's system last year. So I think there's more to his game. And he's so young with so little experience, and to be playing at this level already is so incredibly impressive. If Manchester United, and it doesn't sound like this is going to happen, but everybody's got their price, right? If this deal gets over the line, it will cost a lot of money for Manchester United, but it will make them better overnight. And this is clearly at the base of midfield. We saw this over and over and over again last year with the, at times, Casemiro and Bruno double pivot that is wildly open in transition, that provides very little in terms of rest defense, and just like not a lot on that part of the ball ever. There's a need there, and this would transform that part of the field very, very quickly. There are other needs still for Manchester United, but it's encouraging to see them clearly identifying players that fit in problem areas. Like it's a low bar. It is the lowest of low bars. But to see them actually, meet that bar, it's nice for a change.
Very encouraging. I'm sure we'll all have the same attitude when United lose their first 3 games of the season. We shall see. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Alexander Isak, where is he? We'll find out. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our transfer update. Alexander Isak, is he still somewhere in the northern Spain? We don't know. Maybe Graham does know. We'll find out in a second. But Graham, the number Newcastle are touting, or the number they'd like to receive for Isak, is a reported £150 million. I think I saw Jamie Carragher saying you should be getting Mbappe for that kind of money. I don't know if that's true. But the point being, that's a lot of money for Isak, is it not?
It is a lot of money. I think in this market, 150 is fair value for Alexander Isak. We've just spoken about Benjamin Sesko, the guy who scored 13 goals in the Bundesliga last season. Isak has scored, 44 in the last 2 Premier League seasons, much stronger league. So I think Isak is worth that amount in this market. And he's no longer in northern Spain, or the last that I heard. Not that I'm in close personal contact with him, just on the basis of...
Breaking news, Graham is now employed at KFC, by the way. Herbs and spices and sources for Graham Ruthven.
It worked for Andy Callia, so I thought I'd better get on that gravy train, quite literally, at KFC.
Nice.
So he is no longer training with Real Sociedad. He is at Newcastle's training ground, or has been this week, but he is training on his own, which is never the sign of a happy player at a football club. And it just feels like Newcastle are bracing themselves for Liverpool to come back with a follow-up offer. I read in the Liverpool Echo that the 110 amount that Liverpool had bid last week, which was rejected by Newcastle, that was the amount that Liverpool were comfortable bidding for before they have any money from the Darwin Nunez or Harvey Elliott sales coming in for their PSR position. And the Darwin Nunez one now is close to happening. That could happen in the next few days. So that could be the cork in the bottle that then facilitates Liverpool to go back to Newcastle with a bigger offer. And look, I'm never surprised by anything in football, but the way this one is trending, I would be shocked if by the end of this window, Alexander Isak isn't a Liverpool player. It just seems to be nailed on. That's the way it's going.
Yeah. Does that sound good to you, Joe? Isak in red?
I mean, yeah, it makes Liverpool better. I'm gonna pull a Taylor here, I guess. I'm confused by this move, right? I don't understand how this is Liverpool-y. Like this whole thing feels very strange that they've gone out and dropped what they dropped on Ekitike, who is a number 9, right? Like we talk about him playing on the wing, and of course he can play wider, but he's made his money so far at his best in central areas, and then going out and dropping a club record amount of money, a historically large amount of money on Isak, who I agree, we don't have to quibble. He's a phenomenal player. Like he is the best striker that's available on the market this summer. We all understand that. Graham, can you make this make sense to me? Like, what am I missing here, and what has changed?
Yeah, I saw Grace Robertson posting about this yesterday, and her point was basically, are we going to talk about how this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for Liverpool, where they have... Luis Diaz has come out of that forward line, obviously as a left-sided. I know he played to the middle, but largely he's a left winger. So that kind of leaves the left spot clear for Cody Gakpo, who did start more games than any other player on that side of the pitch. But there's a sense that maybe Liverpool could upgrade on Cody Gakpo, and they've brought in one centre forward who can play as maybe a bit more of a mobile centre forward, but often as part of a front two. Like Ekitike played with Marmoush for Frankfurt in the first half of last season before Marmoush goes to Man City. He's not a left winger, Ekitike. Like maybe he can play there, but it doesn't feel like that's where you're going to get the best out of him. It just feels like Liverpool have seen a market opportunity with Isak, and they have the money, they've got the PSR headroom, they've got this new Adidas deal, they've got an expanded Anfield, they didn't spend anything last summer, they spotted a market opportunity with Isak. They're maybe anticipating, I mean, Salah did sign a new contract, but it's only a two-year deal, and obviously Isak and Salah are very, very different players, but if you're just looking at it in kind of the Billy Bean style of getting players on base, like replacing goals in a team, then Isak helps you do that. And they've kind of done similar with, like, they brought in Jeremy Frimpong. He's not really the same player as Alexander Isak, but they'll maybe make the creativity up by bringing in Florian Wirtz. So there's maybe a scenario where further down the line Liverpool are planning for how this attack is going to look in 1 to 2 years. But yeah, I'm just really interested to see how it all pieces together in the immediate term. It's a lot more rebuilding than I was anticipating from Liverpool coming out of last season. I thought they'd maybe make 1 or 2 big signings, but not this kind of wholesale rebuild of their attack.
Well, and the weird thing to me with Liverpool is if you're planning for your attack in 2 years' time, and I know that if you don't go out and get the player now, you have to sort of reset on some of the negotiation stuff, and things change, right? There is obviously a literal transfer window. There's a window of time now for Liverpool to go out there and get this done, and maybe that won't be true in the future. But the price will only go down the closer Isak gets to the end of his contract, barring an absurd Erling Haaland-esque goal-scoring season where he scores 35 goals, right? I mean, that is possible, but super unlikely, right, for Newcastle, who I think will be good this year, very good, maybe not great, probably in the Premier League, as far as things are trending now. Like, I don't understand what the rush is for Liverpool, unless they view it as more than just succession planning for what the attack looks like and where the numbers are coming from after Salah leaves. It feels like this is... I don't know. There's something more here that just doesn't seem to click for me based off of what we know of Liverpool in the past.
Is the rush the lack of competition for Isak? Are they maybe envisaging a year from now Barcelona need to replace Lewandowski and all of a sudden he's got another option? Because right now, at this point of the window, like, who else, if it's not Liverpool, Saudi Arabia have been linked, but it seems like Isak doesn't want to go there at this point of his career. Like, the other options, Chelsea, for once, don't seem to be in that race. They've already signed a couple of attackers. Next summer, knowing Chelsea, maybe they are in the race. So like, maybe that's the rush. They feel like they've got a free hit at Alexander Isak, or free run.
And if that's the case, and I'll leave it here, right, because I just still don't think it really makes sense to me. If that's the case, why do you go and rush to get Ekitike first?
Yeah,
right?
That's the bit that doesn't make sense.
I understand you want a player to be ready for the start of the season, right? And Isak, it seems like Newcastle are certainly not in a rush to part with him. And maybe Ekitike would have gone to Newcastle, though, in this other reality, and they would have been more willing to sell Isak for £110 million. Like, just this, it feels like I'm missing something in this puzzle, and maybe we're all as a public missing something that's just not out there. Or Liverpool are just changing strategy a little bit this summer. They've spent a lot of money. We've talked about that already. But I don't think that's fully out of character. They've spent money before, and they've been very cautious about their spending. Like, if these moves had been spread out over the last 3 windows or 3 seasons, it wouldn't be as noteworthy. So it is really just this move of Liverpool's summer, or this desired move that smacks of something is different. Not the Wirtz move, not the Frimpong move, this is the one for me that is odd on top of all the rest.
Well, I mean, the Ekitike transfer has made it harder for them to sign Alexander Isak. So if your judgment is that Isak's the player you really want, that's the player you're willing to spend 150 million. I know they haven't got there in the bidding yet, but they're going to have to get to that level to get him out of Newcastle. Then why would you rush through the signing of a player that Newcastle have identified as a potential replacement for Isak? Yeah, it doesn't feel very Liverpool-y. What I would say there is there's a new sporting director at Liverpool this year. I know he's been in place since last summer, but he basically arrived and the transfer window was open, so Richard Hughes didn't really have any chance to put his impression on this club. This is the first time that Liverpool are having a Richard Hughes summer, so maybe this is the kind of thing that they should learn to expect from him.
It's a hot Richard Hughes summer. That's what all the kids are saying at the moment. We shall.
He's a handsome guy.
Indeed. Graham, what to make of Newcastle in all this situation? Because if Sesko's off the table, have we still got the idea that Newcastle don't have as much clout, or they're not as desirable for the Tier 1 players at this point?
I mean, I think you have to come to some sort of conclusion like that on the basis of how they've struck out on so many players this summer. I mean, I really didn't see this sort of summer coming for them, because I thought they're being back in the Champions League, heading in the right direction. They won a trophy last season. I just thought they would be much more attractive to players, and obviously PSR is a factor, but clearly their project is stalling this summer. Nicholas Jackson seems to be the chat now over a player that they could target, which by the way, they could do a lot worse. I'm a relative fan of Nicholas Jackson, so he would potentially slot into that team relatively well. But they are now on to their 6th attacking target this summer, I believe. Liam Delap, Mateus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, Hugo Ekitike, Benjamin Sesko. Nicholas Jackson would make it 6. And there are other players that have rejected him as well, like Dean Huijsen rejected them to go to Real Madrid. They've failed over the last couple of windows to get Mark Gahey. He's holding out for a better offer. James Trafford, of course, they thought they had a deal done for him, and he's gone to Manchester City instead. So yeah, real struggle of a window for Newcastle that could set them back quite significantly.
It feels like there's a pattern here that something's off. I don't know. It's hard to speculate on that.
I mentioned the Richard Hughes factor at Liverpool. That could be a factor for Newcastle as well, where they've gone through. I've forgotten his Dan Ashworth. Couldn't remember his name there for a second. Dan Ashworth came and went, and then Paul Mitchell came and went very quickly. Darren Eales is. He's unfortunately been diagnosed with cancer, I believe. So he's filling in as CEO until they can find a replacement. So they essentially don't have a CEO at the moment. Newcastle, I believe they've only just hired a head of recruitment, Jack Ross. They don't have a technical director. So perhaps that sort of absence of leadership is a factor in why they're finding this summer so difficult.
Yeah, maybe so. Joe, Liverpool's agent of chaos, the OG, Darwin Nunez, off to Al Hilal. A £46 million deal has been agreed there. He signed a few seasons, 2022 he signed for £64 million. Are we sad to see Darwin depart Merseyside?
I mean, the content that Darwin Nunez and his fans generated is something of legend. Coming from Benfica to play for the Big Reds, never forget. So much goodness there. I think this is a great deal for Liverpool, if I'm being honest. Him heading to Al Hilal for 53 million euros plus add-ons, according to David Ornstein. I mean, I think it's time in a lot of ways. Darwin Nunez, a fan favorite, a favorite of mine. I think a favorite of anybody, right? He is a delightful agent of chaos, but there's room to upgrade there, and that's pretty good value, all things considered. I know it is not. None of this has gone how Liverpool hoped it would, right? I mean, remember, Nunez and Haaland moved in the same window, right? And that was back when Liverpool and City were sort of the two horses in a two-horse race. And I think there were reasons to think, man, Nunez with how Liverpool play could be a better stylistic fit than Haaland with City. And there's a way in which you can still kind of make that argument, but it hasn't really blossomed that way at all, right? Haaland has been the Velociraptor strapped on the top of some much more finely regarded, Rolls Royce or something much more classy. And Nunez just kind of never fully clicked with Liverpool. So I think it is time for that to move on. I will miss it. I will think about it often, but it's okay that it's over.
Yeah, I'm sad about this. The Chaos King is one of my favourite players, but I agree with Joe. There's an opportunity here to upgrade on him. The dude just misses too many chances. Like there's compilations of how many sitters he has missed just over the course of 3 seasons at Liverpool. I've never seen someone hit the post so many times from about 5 yards out as Darwin Nunez. And then there's still occasions when you know how we talk about Patrick Agyemang being like the snow globe player for the USMNT. I think of Darwin Nunez for Liverpool, or latterly that's how I sort of thought of him. When things weren't working for Liverpool, he was a good player to throw on and just like shake things up. But ultimately, Isak, if that's the plan, to replace him with Isak, is just a far more accomplished player. And Liverpool, despite the fact they turned down, I believe, 75 million euros for Nunez in January, so that maybe wasn't the wisest of decisions. But despite that fact, I still think 50 plus million for him is a fair value.
Graham, if you were to guess, how much did Nunez underperform his expected goals last year, right? So if he had, I'm just giving an example. Let's say he had 30 expected goals and only scored 20 goals. That would be underperforming it by 10 goals for the listener. Where do you think he was?
Things, isn't it? This is going to be one of these things where perception is challenged and he actually overperformed.
No, maybe it's huge. Maybe it's a huge difference.
I mean, he didn't play a whole lot of football, right? But I'd say he underperformed by maybe four goals or something like that.
0.8. But the year before, it was 5. And the year before that, it was 3. And 2 years before that, it was 4.
So around that mark.
Yeah, he had one season with Benfica where he overperformed, easy for me to say, by 8 goals and was on an absolute heater. And in spite of that, he is still a net negative finisher in the last, really since he moved to Portugal from Almeria in Spain. He's at -5 overall. So, yeah, there's a decent pile of, man, this guy misses sitters evidence, even if it didn't all come last year.
Every so often he would produce a finish that would make you think, man, this guy has the potential to be the coolest one-on-one. You remember the one he scooped it over the goalkeeper? It was like the most perfect one-on-one scoop you've ever seen in your life. But unfortunately that happens 1 out of 20 times then he's through on goal.
That underperforming joke last season, though, that's got to be because of a smaller sample size, right?
I mean, there was a smaller sample size, but the dude scored 5 goals on 5.8 expected goals. He has missed a lot of chances, but for all of the missed chances, those are the ones that stick in the mind. The simple goals, or the other high quality looks, the low quality looks that he converts don't stand out in the same way. So yeah, I mean, dude was not a bad finisher last year, technically speaking, but has a pretty big pile of evidence that says he's not the best at that sort of thing.
There you go. Oh, Nunez, don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened in the first place. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Jack Grealish might be on his travels. Let's find out where. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our transfer update. Jack Grealish, Graham, might be on a loan deal move to a Premier League team. What are we thinking?
Yeah, so David Ornstein reported yesterday on Wednesday that Everton have opened talks with Man City over a deal for Jack Grealish. This is a story that has kind of bubbled away all summer. Initially, it was a permanent deal that was reported, but Man City wanted something like £50 million for him, which Everton either aren't able to pay or are unwilling to pay for Jack Grealish. Now the chat, as you say, Ryan, is that this would be a season-long loan. Ornstein says the deal would be complicated, I presume, because of the fact that Jack Grealish is on £300,000 a week at Manchester City. So I don't think Everton are in a position to pay all of that. So maybe a scenario where Man City have to pick up some of that tab. But this is more like the sort of ambition I thought we would see from Everton in this window. What with it being the Friedkins' first proper window as owners, they're moving into the new stadium. I just thought they would, you know how it is, new stadium, new ambition, new era, just bring in a few more kind of names for fans to get behind. It's been really underwhelming so far. They are starting to get a bit busier now. They signed Kieran Dewsbury-Hall a few days ago. They brought in Tierno Barry from Villarreal, who's a player that I really like, Tierno Barry, but it's quite similar to Beto, so I'm not entirely sure how he rounds out that attack. And then Adam Asnou, who's a player I don't know as much about. He's been signed from Bayern to presumably be the starting left back. But this is a team that lost 9 players at the end of last season, and some of those players they needed to lose. Some of those players, a lot of those players, it was Everton's decision to allow them to leave. But nonetheless, they have so much work to do to build out that squad, and David Moyes has been very public in his concern. He said something like 2 weeks ago, he said something to the effect of they need 6 or 7 players before the start of the season. Well, the Premier League season starts a week on Saturday, and Everton have not signed 6 or 7 players. They've signed 1 player, I believe, in that time. Maybe it's a second one if they get the Grealish deal over the line. But yeah, I think there's a world where this is a good addition for Everton. I would counter my own belief there with not entirely sure where he's going to play. Iliman Ndiaye is their starting left winger, and at this point I would say is more consistent and reliable than Jack Grealish. But there's a world where David Moyes shifts them into a 4-2-3-1, maybe creates like a more obvious number 10 role for Jack Grealish, which of course is where he played for a lot for Aston Villa when he was there. So it's a role that he would know well. And Everton have chased Grealish for a while, so you would think they have some sort of plan for him. And I kind of want to see this happen because Jack Grealish, it just seems very sad at the moment, Jack Grealish, sitting on that Man City bench, and I like it when he's happy. He's a fun player, so let's have him be fun at Everton.
Must be tough to get that $300,000 a week to sit on the bench, though. Yeah, I'd be sad as well.
He's not working out those calves sitting on the bench. That's what he's really concerned about.
But he's not, no one's mussing up his hair when he's sitting on the bench, though. There is a positive, I would say. But Graham, I suppose the idea with Everton and needing to get some players on board, I seem to remember when Arsenal moved to the Emirates, they had a good few windows where they basically didn't do anything because they had to pay for a stadium. So there might be a bit more financial pressure on them at this point as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. But I think Dan Friedkin, when he comes in as the owner, had promised funds for this window. And I should say now with Dewsbury Hall coming in, they have spent, I'm just looking at their transfer market page now, They have spent 87 million euros. That's not nothing that they've spent. They did pay 50 million euros to make Carlos Alcaraz's deal permanent from Flamengo. He had a good impact on loan in the second half of last season. They brought in how much would Yannick Sinner be? They brought in Mark Travers as a sub goalkeeper.
Sorry, Taylor's not here. I had to do it.
yeah, to fill in the role. But I still a lot of players that they've lost, like Ashley Young, Mason Holgate, Asmir Begovic, Abdoulaye Doucouré. I think a lot of fans wanted him to stick around. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we'll see where he ends up. I think Sunderland have been interested in him. So, it's a squad that's looking a bit thin on the ground right now.
Yeah. What do you think, Joe? Everton in their brand new Merseyside Dock Stadium with Jack Grealish somewhere in the lineup. Does that excite you?
Yeah, actually. Like, that's the most exciting thing about Everton. I mean, Graham brought us down to earth with a lot of very practical realities around Everton and did the tactics nerdery as well. I'm going to set all that completely aside and just say I would absolutely love for Jack Grealish to go to a team where he can be the man again. Like, just to really emphasize that, I would love to see Jack Grealish in that position to get him back in the spotlight, because the cycle has sort of come to a conclusion at City, right? I mean, Pep came out and said that he was the one who fought for Grealish to move to City, and it was a really important player for them for a couple of seasons. It was part of multiple. It was a key part of multiple title pushes. At 29, though, barely playing over the last 2 seasons, there's not a lot of top tier Jack Grealish left, right? I mean, Grealish can still play soccer for a lot of years, but how much of him at his best do we have left to see? I would actually like to see that rather than see it rot on City's bench and get 800 minutes a year. And I think Everton is a really fun potential destination for him. It would make them so much more interesting. I do think there's a world in which he thrives there. We've seen him carry a not great Premier League team before and to do a lot of really good playmaking stuff for them. He's an awesome player to watch, and this would make me very happy.
Yeah, I kind of got muddled in my own point there by
those were
trying
good
to bring
points.
us,
All those were good points.
Yeah, trying to bring us back to ground on like where he's going to fit into the team. Ultimately, I think if you have an opportunity to sign Jack Grealish, Everton should do it just on a talent basis. Like, worry about where he fits into the team later. Figure that stuff out later and just get him into the squad. So yeah, I hope this one happens.
Yeah. All right, very good. How about Rodrygo? Apparently not fitting in at Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid. Madrid, as I've just seen some media reporting that Real Madrid will not let him leave for anything less than 70 to 80 million euros. Well, which one is it? If it's not anything less than.
I mean, 70 to 80 million euros, the way that's framed is like, oh, well, no one's going to go near that. I mean, 70 to 80 million euros for Rodrygo feels like a decent deal in this market for me, given some of the other prices.
In the 150 million Isak market, yes, Graham, I would agree. if that's
in the what was it, 70 million euros Cunha market, I think the same or 10 million more for Rodrygo's looking pretty good.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, it seems a few clubs have been linked with him. I've seen Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham. Graham, do we think Rodrygo is going to be a Premier League player in the next few weeks?
It seems possible. Obviously, I don't have. You'll be shocked to learn this. I've got a few more hours to log at KFC before I have inside information, but I don't have the scoop on Rodrygo. But just reading the tea leaves and the reporting, yeah, it very much seems like he is on the outside of Xabi Alonso's team right now. I kind of predicted this at the start of the year that he or maybe someone else would be squeezed out of that forward line. And Arsenal have been tentatively linked. Seems like they're maybe focusing on Eze as that. He obviously is maybe more of a number 10 than Rodrygo, but he shades out to the left side, so maybe that's what they're envisaging as his position. But Spurs are the team that's been linked in the Spanish press. Obviously, they need, or you would think they need a replacement for Son on the left wing. Rodrygo, of course, over the last 3 or 4 seasons, has largely played on the right wing for Real Madrid, but he feels he's more effective on the left. That's where he wants to play. So that would be an attraction for him going to Spurs, is that there's a place open in that team. And Spurs, it feels like they need another attacking piece before the start of the season, or at least before the window closes, because James Maddison is out for the season. Kulusevski, I believe, has also got an injury right now and has a bit of a track record of being a bit of a crock, quite frankly. So there is scope for them to add another attacker. They thought one of those attackers was going to be Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously, Rodrygo's a very different player, but in terms of just adding goals and creativity to the team, Rodrygo would be a clear upgrade on what they have.
Very good. Joe, any thoughts on Rodrygo and his outcasting in Madrid?
I think it's interesting. It seems to me that maybe we're moving from from it being striker summer into it being winger summer a little bit at the moment. There's still some things to be sorted
Richard
out
Chew
in
summer, just to
Newcastle.
be clear, Jeff.
Yeah, fair. There's still some striker stuff to be sorted out, clearly, as we've talked about on today's show. Newcastle are at the center of a lot of that. But I do think, now that we see Rodrygo's name popping up more, I've seen Bradley Barcola's name pop up a lot more in the last couple of days. Both of those guys, I think, are massively effective additions to wherever they're going to land. I mean, maybe it's a little bit team dependent, but I think Barcola, that he's gotten sort of bumped out of the lineup by Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, and Desiree Doué should not really be held against him. I think he's a phenomenal player, and sort of a similar story with Rodrygo, right? I think Rodrygo could fit in so many places, and at Tottenham, he would be an awesome addition. That they can go from having like a little bit of the husk of Son Heung-min, easy for me to say, on that side in their best games, to having Rodrygo feels like a slam dunk. So I think we are going to see a lot of movement in that part of the field. On the wing, Arsenal are still kind of digging around. Liverpool clearly are digging around. There's more chips to fall on that part of the field, and I think Rodrygo is definitely part of that.
Very good stuff. And just a note on Son, Joe, are we expecting to see him in action pretty soon for LAFC?
Kind of sounds like it. He had his unveiling yesterday, which was awesome. When I talk about the husk of Son, I think from a Tottenham perspective, that is kind of where we were. I think he's going to crush a lot of MLS defenders, and I'm very, very excited to see what that looks like. I think it's going to be great TV. He had his unveiling yesterday. Like, it's wild how much attention he's already bringing to LAFC. Their social media following has skyrocketed. You'd have to imagine a lot of those followers are coming from Asia. Like, it is awesome to see how this looks. And he talked about how I'm ready to go. I'm already through my preseason. I'm ready to play. I just need to actually talk with the coaches to figure out what we're doing. That's a rough paraphrase, but I do think we're going to see Son very soon. And I don't know exactly how he fits. And Jeff and I talked about that on Tuesday. It's a bit odd that Son was their target when Denny Bouanga plays in that same left wing position and is probably the best left winger in MLS. But Son is so good. Like, he is still really good. Like, I think he could have contributed to Tottenham this year in a real way. I'd just rather have Rodrygo, right? That's where we're at this stage. But he is, it doesn't sound like far away from playing, and I'm really eager to see what that looks like.
Excellent stuff. Very excited, and hope Son's acclimatising well. I'm presuming he's been practising by sitting in a lot of traffic so he can get used to the environment.
Just paying exorbitant Ryan Bailey prices for parking, I think is what.
Cool,
that's his training regimen.
Don't do that, Joe. All right. I think, Graham, that might wrap up our transfer update unless there's any more. It seems like, is this an exciting window, Graham? Are you because you are a transfer window fan. Does this one feel, it feels very, as Joe's outlined, sort of striker and winger forward heavy this time around?
It has been a blockbuster summer. It feels like every top Premier League team has gone nuts. Like, Arsenal are spending so much more than I thought they would. Liverpool are spending so much more than I thought they would. Chelsea. Manchester United, not entirely sure where their money is coming from or how they're getting away with that with PSR. So yeah, it's been a blockbuster summer in the Premier League. Just two more deals quickly to touch on before we wrap this up. Xavi Simons, I was reading this morning some reports in Germany that basically Simons is now trying to actively force his way out of Leipzig. He wants that move to Chelsea. Of course, that's the team that has been linked with him. Leipzig, the sticking point for Leipzig is they want significantly more than the 50 million euros they paid for Simons in January. Do you remember that deal? That was a bit weird when he was on loan at Leipzig. Leipzig did that deal with a view to making a profit on him and selling him pretty quickly. The problem is it seems like Chelsea are not willing to pay more than that, or they know they've got leverage in that situation, and maybe they can get Leipzig down a little bit. Leipzig, they're already looking at Harvey Elliott. I mentioned him earlier in the episode about Liverpool maybe getting a fee for him. He's been lined up as a replacement. And then the other big deal that looks close to being finalised is actually one out of the Premier League. It's Zabarnyi, the Bournemouth central defender.
Yep.
He is close to going to PSG in a deal worth 63 million euros, which is a lot. I think he'll be a depth option behind Marquinhos and William Pacho, at least this season. And that would take Bournemouth's outgoings to £200 million for this summer. Milos Kerkez, Huijsen and Zabarnyi, just three of their starting back four. Remember I aired my concerns about the exodus at Brentford and that affecting them this season. Well, I might have to recycle that point for Bournemouth. That's a lot of talent that's coming out of their team.
Oh boy. Giving some hope to the promoted teams here, and I haven't even got to my thoughts on West Ham at any point yet. They're in trouble. Anyway, thank you very much for this transfer update, Graham and Joe. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much indeed. Pleasure as always, sir.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
Joe Lowery, thank you very much indeed, sir.
KFC.
Log those hours. Thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this episode. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.